Imagine being fired by a musical genius like Prince, only to turn that setback into one of the most legendary careers in music history. That's exactly what happened to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the iconic duo whose music defined R&B and pop for decades. From creating chart-topping hits for Janet Jackson to shaping the sounds of legends like Michael Jackson, their journey is nothing short of extraordinary. But their story isn't all glitz and glamour. It's a tale of resilience and reinvention, from the dramatic moment Prince fired them to producing Janet Jackson's groundbreaking album Control, and even navigating the emotional estrangement between Jimmy Jam and his father, Cornbread Harris, for nearly 50 years. Born on June 6, 1959, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Jimmy Jam was introduced to music at an early age through his father, the legendary blues and jazz musician Cornbread Harris. Cornbread was a local icon, known for his soulful performances and ability to captivate audiences with his mastery of the piano. Growing up in such a rich musical environment, Jimmy naturally gravitated toward the keys, experimenting with melodies and rhythms. But despite the musical influence at home, his relationship with his father was complicated, especially as Cornbread struggled to balance his own musical ambitions with the responsibilities of fatherhood. This dynamic left an indelible mark on Jimmy, shaping his understanding of both the sacrifices and rewards of pursuing music as a career. Jimmy's natural talent for the piano blossomed during his teenage years, and he began exploring various genres, from jazz to funk. However, it wasn't just his father's legacy that motivated him. It was also his own desire to carve out a unique voice in the Minneapolis music scene. He joined a local band, Mind and Matter, where he honed his skills and began making a name for himself as a musician with a distinctive sound and undeniable charisma. Terry Lewis, born on November 24, 1956, in Omaha, Nebraska, also grew up in a household that valued music. Though his journey to becoming a bassist was less direct, his stepfather and uncle both played guitar, and it was through their influence that Terry first picked up the instrument. But it wasn't until he stumbled upon an old broken guitar at home that his true musical journey began. With the top two strings missing, Terry adapted by focusing on the remaining strings, inadvertently teaching himself the basics of bass guitar. This resourcefulness became a hallmark of his approach to music, turning challenges into opportunities and developing a unique style that set him apart. As a teenager, Terry moved to Minneapolis and began playing in local bands, quickly earning a reputation for his dynamic stage presence and innovative bass lines. He eventually formed Flight Time, a funk band inspired by the likes of Parliament Funkadelic and other pioneers of the genre. The band became a staple in the local music scene, competing in Battle of the Bands competitions and drawing crowds with their electrifying performances. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis first crossed paths as teenagers during the University of Minnesota's Upward Bound program, a summer initiative designed to help students excel academically and socially. While the program itself focused on peer teaching and mentoring, it inadvertently became the backdrop for one of the most important musical partnerships of all time. At first, the two were friendly rivals, leading competing bands, Jimmy with Mind and Matter and Terry with Flight Time. Both bands had distinct styles, with Mind and Matter leaning toward smooth, Philly-inspired vocals and Flight Time delivering raw, high-energy funk. These differences often led to intense competition during local events, with each band trying to outshine the other. Despite the rivalry, Jimmy and Terry couldn't help but admire each other's talents. After several battles of the bands, a mutual respect began to form. They recognized that their individual strengths complemented each other. Jimmy's finesse on the keys and ability to arrange complex harmonies paired perfectly with Terry's knack for crafting unforgettable bass grooves and driving rhythms. It wasn't long before they decided to set aside their competitive streaks and collaborate. Their decision to work together marked the beginning of a creative partnership that would redefine modern music. Joining forces under the banner of Flight Time, they began experimenting with new sounds and techniques, blending their influences to create something truly original. This collaboration not only elevated the band's performance, but also laid the groundwork for their future success as producers and songwriters. It became clear to everyone who saw them perform that they were destined for something bigger than the Minneapolis music scene. While their early years were filled with late-night rehearsals and local gigs, Jimmy and Terry's shared passion for music and commitment to excellence set them apart. They weren't just playing to entertain, they were laying the foundation for a legacy that would span decades. Their time in the Upward Bound program and subsequent partnership in Flight Time was the first chapter in a story of innovation, perseverance, and groundbreaking artistry. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's entry into Prince's orbit was a pivotal moment in their journey. By the early 1980s, Prince was establishing himself not only as a musical innovator, but also as a creative visionary with a knack for assembling talent. Recognizing their potential, he brought Jimmy and Terry into The Time, a band he had created to serve as both a musical act and a platform to explore his more funk-centric ideas. Prince's involvement in The Time went beyond mentorship. He was the band's primary creative force, writing and producing much of their material, while encouraging the members to shine as performers. Jimmy and Terry joined as keyboardist and bassist, respectively, and quickly became integral to The Time's live performances. Prince's high standards pushed them to refine their craft, learning not only technical skills, but also the art of commanding an audience. They became key contributors to the band's dynamic sound, which fused funk, R&B, and rock in electrifying ways. As much as The Time was Prince's brainchild, it was also a testing ground for Jimmy and Terry to absorb his relentless work ethic and creative discipline. Despite Prince's dominance, he allowed room for improvisation during live shows, a freedom Jimmy and Terry thrived on. They also observed how he navigated the music industry, learning the importance of control and branding. Yet, Prince's exacting nature also meant there was little tolerance for stepping outside his vision. This tension would eventually come to a head. As much as they admired Prince, Jimmy and Terry's ambitions extended beyond being members of The Time. They began dabbling in production, collaborating with other artists to develop their skills and explore their own creative voices. This side hustle brought them into the orbit of the SOS Band, a funk and R&B group in need of fresh ideas. The duo saw an opportunity to craft a new sound, blending soulful melodies with cutting-edge electronic production. What seemed like a harmless endeavor quickly turned into a problem. Prince had a strict rule. Members of The Time were forbidden from working with other acts without his permission. Jimmy and Terry, confident in their ability to manage both commitments, decided to quietly produce for the SOS Band anyway. Things went smoothly until a scheduling conflict revealed their extracurricular activities. While producing for the SOS Band in Atlanta, a massive snowstorm hit, grounding flights and preventing them from joining The Time for a concert in San Antonio. Their absence was glaring and impossible to ignore, forcing Prince to confront them about their defiance. Prince's reaction was swift and dramatic. When Jimmy and Terry returned to Minneapolis, they were summoned to Sunset Sound Studio, where they found themselves face-to-face with their bandmates and Prince himself. The atmosphere was tense as Prince laid out his case. "I told you not to produce for other groups. You didn't listen. You're fired." The decision stunned Jimmy and Terry. They had anticipated some backlash, but not outright dismissal. For a moment, it seemed like their musical aspirations were in jeopardy. But Prince's decision, as harsh as it seemed, became a defining moment for the duo. It pushed them to focus entirely on their burgeoning production career. forcing them to bet on themselves and their abilities. Unknown to Jimmy and Terry at the time, Prince's firing was partially a bluff designed to test their loyalty and resolve. However, by the time they realized it, they had already begun building momentum outside of the time. Their production for the SOS band's Just Be Good to Me was gaining traction, and they were inundated with requests from other artists eager to work with them. Looking back, Jimmy and Terry came to see Prince's actions not as a punishment, but as a form of liberation. As Terry later reflected, "Prince didn't fire us, he freed us to pursue our destiny." The firing severed their direct ties to Prince's empire, but also marked the beginning of their journey as independent producers and songwriters, ready to carve out their own legacy. This turning point highlighted the complexity of their relationship with Prince. He had been both a mentor and a taskmaster, a collaborator and a rival. Even in his absence, the lessons they learned from him about discipline, innovation, and self-belief continued to shape their careers. Far from being a setback, their dismissal from the time became the launch pad for their ascent to greatness. After being let go from the time, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis didn't wallow in self-pity. Instead, they threw themselves into their production work, determined to make their mark. Their first major breakthrough came with the SOS band's hit single, Just Be Good to Me, in 1983. This song not only dominated the charts, but also introduced the world to their signature production style: lush, emotionally resonant arrangements driven by the hypnotic beat of the Roland TR-808 drum machine. The haunting yet groovy rhythm, combined with Cheryl's captivating vocals, made the track a timeless anthem. Just Be Good to Me was more than just a hit. It was a statement. It demonstrated that Jimmy and Terry had a knack for blending cutting-edge technology with deeply human emotion, a combination that would become their hallmark. The song's success cemented their reputation as serious producers and opened the floodgates for collaborations with other artists. Realizing the potential to have a greater impact behind the scenes, Jimmy and Terry transitioned fully into songwriting and production. By forming their own company, Flight Time Productions, they began building a catalog of hits that spanned genres and demographics. Their ability to tailor songs to an artist's unique style while maintaining their own sonic identity set them apart in an increasingly competitive industry. As their reputation grew, so did their Rolodex of collaborators. One of their earliest successes was with Cheryl, producing the steamy duet Saturday Love alongside Alexander O'Neal. The chemistry between the two vocalists, coupled with Jimmy and Terry's impeccable production, made the song an instant classic. They continued working with Alexander, crafting his hits If You Were Here Tonight and Fake, both of which showcased their ability to blend heartfelt balladry with irresistible grooves. However, their most iconic collaboration began in 1986 with Janet Jackson. At the time, Janet was better known as Michael Jackson's younger sister than as a recording artist in her own right. But when she teamed up with Jimmy and Terry to record her album Control, everything changed. The duo encouraged Janet to explore themes of independence and empowerment. One standout moment came during the creation of What Have You Done For Me Lately? Originally intended for their own project, the track was played for Janet during a studio session. As the story goes, she immediately gravitated toward it, asking, "Who's that for?" Jimmy and Terry, recognizing the perfect fit, responded, "You, if you want it." The song became one of the album's biggest hits, and a defining anthem of Janet's career. Their next collaboration, Rhythm Nation 1814, was even more ambitious. Released in 1989, the album blended social commentary with infectious dance beats, producing 4 Billboard Hot 100 #1 hits. Tracks like Miss You Much and Escapade showcased Jimmy and Terry's ability to balance commercial appeal with artistic depth. The album's success was unprecedented, solidifying Janet as a global superstar and Jimmy and Terry as industry titans. As their careers soared, Jimmy and Terry began racking up accolades. Their work on Control earned them a Grammy for Producer of the Year in 1987, the first of many milestones. They continued to dominate the charts throughout the late 80s and 90s, becoming go-to producers for a wide array of artists. Their use of the TR-808 drum machine became legendary, adding an unmistakable edge to their productions. By pairing the crisp, mechanical beats of the 808 with lush synthesizers and live instrumentation, they created a sound that was both futuristic and deeply soulful. This innovative approach allowed them to stay ahead of the curve, influencing countless producers and shaping the sound of contemporary R&B and pop. The duo's success wasn't limited to Janet Jackson. They worked with a diverse array of artists, including the Human League, Human, Patti Austin, and New Edition, If It Isn't Love. Each collaboration reinforced their versatility, showing they could seamlessly adapt their style to fit the artist's voice while maintaining their distinct musical fingerprint. Their work didn't just produce hits, it changed the trajectory of their collaborators' careers. Many artists, like Janet Jackson, credit Jimmy and Terry with helping them find their voice and identity. Their studio sessions were known for being collaborative and supportive, with the duo acting as mentors as much as producers. Jimmy and Terry's influence extended beyond the studio. They set a new standard for producers, demonstrating that it was possible to balance artistic integrity with commercial success. Their work ethic and commitment to excellence earned them respect, not only from artists, but also from industry peers. By the time the 90s rolled around, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis had become household names. Their sound defined an era, influencing everything from radio playlists to fashion trends. They weren't just producers, they were cultural architects, shaping the way people experienced music. Through all their success, Jimmy and Terry remained humble and grounded, often attributing their achievements to the artists they worked with and the lessons they learned along the way. Their story is a testament to the power of perseverance, innovation, and the magic that happens when two creative minds come together in perfect harmony. From their breakout hit with the SOS Band to their Grammy-winning work with Janet Jackson, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's rise as legendary producers is a story of talent, hard work, and unwavering vision. Their ability to consistently evolve while staying true to their core sound has made them icons, and their legacy continues to inspire generations of artists and producers alike. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis may be celebrated for their unparalleled musical achievements, but their personal lives reveal deeply human stories of triumph, struggle, and resilience. Behind the glitz and glamour of their careers lie moments of heartbreak, growth, and hard-earned wisdom. Jimmy Jam's relationship with his father, Cornbread Harris, is a tale filled with emotional complexity. Cornbread, a legendary figure in the Minneapolis music scene, was known for his mastery of blues and jazz. However, the demands of being a father often clashed with his musical aspirations. When Jimmy was a teenager, Cornbread made the painful decision to leave his family to pursue his own dreams of performing and touring. This decision led to a 50-year estrangement between father and son. For years, Jimmy wrestled with feelings of abandonment and resentment, believing that his father's departure was a reflection of misplaced priorities. As his own career soared, he often avoided confronting the pain of his father's absence, focusing instead on building his legacy. In recent years, however, Jimmy began to reflect on the parallels between his father's struggles and his own. As a father himself, he realized the sacrifices required to balance family and career. This understanding became the foundation for reconciliation. In an emotional reunion, Jimmy and Cornbread reconnected, bridging the gap created by decades of silence. For Jimmy, the opportunity to forgive and rebuild their relationship was transformative, allowing him to let go of lingering guilt and bitterness. Terry Lewis's personal life has also been marked by both joy and complexity. Over the years, he has been in 3 significant relationships, each contributing to his journey as a father and partner. From his first relationship, Terry welcomed 2 children, Trey and Chloe, who became sources of pride and inspiration. His second marriage was to singer Karen White, a union that lasted 8 years and produced 2 more children, Brandon and Ashley. Though their marriage ultimately ended, Terry remained deeply committed to co-parenting and supporting his children. In his third marriage to Indira Singh, Terry found stability and happiness, and the couple welcomed 2 more children. With a total of 6 kids across his relationships, Terry embraced fatherhood as a central part of his life, even as his career demanded long hours in the studio and on the road. For both Jimmy and Terry, the intense demands of their careers often came at the expense of personal time. Late-night studio sessions and relentless schedules left little room for traditional family life. Yet, they both worked hard to maintain strong bonds with their children, instilling values of perseverance and creativity. Jimmy and Terry often spoke about the sacrifices required to achieve their dreams, acknowledging the support of their families and the challenges of balancing work and home life. Over time, they learned to prioritize moments of connection, recognizing that their roles as fathers and partners were just as important as their roles as music legends. After being dismissed from the time, Jimmy and Terry thought their professional relationship with Prince was over. But as their production careers began to flourish, Prince made several attempts to rehire them. The first came shortly after they scored a hit with the SOS Band. Prince, impressed by their growing success, tried to persuade Terry to rejoin the time without Jimmy, employing a classic divide-and-conquer tactic. Terry, however, declined, loyal to their partnership. Years later, after Janet Jackson's Control solidified their status as industry powerhouses, Prince reached out again, this time extending the offer to both of them. By then, Jimmy and Terry had firmly established their independence and politely declined. Despite these professional differences, their respect for Prince remained. When Prince passed away in 2016, Jimmy and Terry reflected on his influence and mentorship. They credited him with teaching them the value of discipline and innovation, qualities that continued to shape their work. For Terry, Prince's decision to let them go was ultimately a blessing. He didn't fire us. He freed us to pursue our destiny. One of the most remarkable aspects of Jimmy and Terry's legacy is their enduring friendship and partnership. For over 50 years, they've worked side by side, navigating the highs and lows of the music industry. With the release of Volume 1 marked a full-circle moment for Jimmy and Terry. It was a testament to their resilience, creativity, and unwavering commitment to excellence. Even after decades of success, they remained hungry for new challenges, always looking for ways to push the boundaries of their craft. Today, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis are celebrated not only as music producers, but as cultural icons. Their work has shaped the sound of generations, influencing artists across genres and inspiring countless producers. With 5 Grammy Awards and numerous accolades to their name, their legacy is firmly cemented in music history. Yet, perhaps their greatest achievement is the example they've set for others. Through their partnership, they've demonstrated the power of collaboration, loyalty, and vision. Whether crafting hits for Janet Jackson or reconciling with loved ones, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis have shown that true greatness comes not from avoiding challenges, but from rising to meet them.